Hello, my adventurers. Welcome to your Chin Chin class. These are the ingredients you'll be needing for this Chin Chin. You can gather your ingredients before we start, and you can pause this video if you need to in order to get your ingredients together. So we are going to proceed with measuring our ingredients, starting with our flour. As you can see, I am not heaping the cup. I'm putting the flour at a leveled manner so it doesn't pass the 1 cup measurement for flour. So you just measure your flour as required by the recipe. And also, after measuring your flour, you sieve it. It's good to sieve your flour because it removes any particles that you cannot see, and also it incorporates air into your flour, which can make your pastry very fluffy, very light, and not dense and heavy. So the next thing we'll be measuring into the flour is baking powder. So you measure according to the quantity on the recipe. So you just put your baking powder into the flour directly. Also try to sieve your baking powder because baking powder sometimes can come with some lumps which you would not like to have in your mixture. As you can see, I measure my baking powder at a leveled way so I don't heap the measuring spoon. Use a measuring spoon. Make sure you get your measuring spoon and use that. It is more accurate. So you level the baking powder on the measuring spoon. Do not heap it. So you sieve it into the flour. The next ingredient we are going to be adding is nutmeg, ground nutmeg. Sometimes you go to the market, you cannot get the ground one and you get just the seed. So if you get the seed, you just grate it and you measure. You can see everything I'm measuring, it's at a leveled way. I don't heap my spoons, I just level it on the spoon. So you measure your nutmeg, but if you want more nutmeg or a stronger nutmeg flavor, you can heap your measuring spoons, but do not overdo it because it's going to overwhelm your chin chin. So you just measure that, and then you measure your sugar. Always use your measuring cup. So you measure your sugar and put into the flour mixture. At this point, you just mix all the dry ingredients together so that everything is mixed properly before you start measuring your wet ingredients. So this is my measuring scale. You need a small measuring scale for this because you have to measure your margarine or your butter accurately. But you can get butter or margarine in packets or small containers with the measurement already written on it. It will be easier for you to estimate that way if you don't have a scale. So I just place my bowl on the scale and I start measuring my butter. So after getting the right measurements for your margarine or butter, you should start mixing the margarine and flour mixture together. You can either wash your hands properly and mix with your hands, or you can wear gloves which are safe for food and use them. So in this case, I'm using gloves, but you can use your hands. Just make sure you wash them properly. So you just have to mix and mix till it gives you a crumbly texture. So like breadcrumbs, just mix it properly. As you can see, my mixture is looking more like breadcrumbs now. You can see that. So it shows that the butter or margarine has coated the flour properly. The next thing is to create a hole in the middle of your flour mixture and crack your eggs or pour your beaten eggs in the middle. So in this case, I'm just cracking the eggs directly into the flour mixture in the hole I created in the middle. That's what you should do. next thing to do is to add your vanilla flavor. This is a vanilla I'm using, so you can get vanilla from the market and measure with your measuring spoons and add into your bowl and mix properly till everything comes together. You can now add your milk. Make sure you measure the milk as well, so that you don't add too much at a time. So you just add bit by bit to make sure that your dough is not too soft. So you add a little bit and you mix before adding more. Add enough milk which you just make your dough to combine, but your dough shouldn't be soft and sticky on your hands. It should just be combined and it should not be too hard. So your dough should be something like this. See, it is not hard, it is soft enough, but it is not sticking on my hands. So that's how your dough should look like. If it's too soft, you can add some flour to it and knead again, but do not over knead your dough because it may make your chin-chin strong. Now you can flour your trays or the surface on which you'll be cutting your chin-chin and putting. So I'll be using this cutter, this pizza cutter. If you have a knife, you use. If you don't have this pizza cutter, use a knife. So I'll be using the pizza cutter and I'm just flouring the surface on which I'll be rolling my dough. This is to prevent the dough from sticking on the surface and frustrating you when you're rolling. So you can divide your dough to make it easier for you to roll. That's what I'm doing here. You can divide the dough into smaller pieces to ease your work, and it could even make it go faster, because when the dough is big you have to roll with so much force and for a longer time. So you divide your dough according to how you can roll it. So as you're rolling, make sure you're lifting up the dough and checking to make sure it's not sticking on the surface. Now you can cut your chin-chin to your desired shapes and you roll. Make sure it is not too thin, because if it's too thin it will be too crunchy and it can start breaking in the oil. So it should just be in the middle. It should not be too thin and too thick as well, because if it's too thick it might not get dry. You see these tiny pieces, you just take them out and keep them aside. So don't be scared that your chin-chin is going to stick, because if you mix properly, follow the recipe and put the right measurements for the ingredients, it's not going to stick together. Also make sure that there's some flour on the surface when you're rolling, so that when you're putting your already cut chin-chin together, it doesn't stick together. The flour is going to also help prevent it from sticking. And when you put it in the oil, it's going to scatter and separate. So don't be scared about that. Just make sure you don't also press them together when you're lifting it up. So you can also use this method to cut your chin-chin. So you just cut the long strands and then you take one strand and cut into smaller pieces. This is how you should spread your chin-chin on your surface. Do not pack them too much on the tray or on the surface, because it might stick together if it is not well flat or if the recipe was not well followed. And this is the chin chin in the pot. Before putting the chin chin, make sure your oil is hot but not too hot. Set your flame to be at medium, not high, not low, because if it's low it will soak oil, and if it's high it's going to burn without being crunchy. So make sure you put it at the right temperature. So the chin chin, as you can see, it's golden brown. You take it out. You can leave it to be browner than that if that's what you want, but this is a very good color for chin chin, and it is very presentable. So you take it out. One thing you can do to prevent oil from foaming too much is to reduce the quantity of chin chin you put in the pot at a time. And also, when you put the chin chin, instead of mixing it vigorously, you just touch it, because once you mix it, the moisture in the chin chin will be trying to escape into the oil, and that's what is going to cause the oil to foam a lot. So you see what I'm doing, the oil wants to foam and come up because I put a lot of chin chin inside. So I just use my frying spoon to mix the oil together to prevent it from coming up. Yeah, so this is the final result. This is how your chin chin should look like, golden brown and nice.